Bonjour. Okay. So I am the French teacher here at this location. I've only been working here for about 2 months, but I absolutely love it. And I definitely, adore working with my colleagues. So I'd like to present myself. Je me présente à vous. My name is Vanessa. I am an Ontario certified teacher. So I got my bachelor's degree in English literature and French literature at the University of Ottawa, and then my bachelor's of education at York. So I have also taught abroad for 2 years in Japan, teaching English as a second language. And then I have worked as a private tutor to foreign students who are here to learn English as well as French. And I currently work with the TCASB as a French specialty teacher. So if you haven't already figured it out, I love languages. Don't ask me about math, but you can ask me anything about languages. So French. It is, of course, an official language, and it should, in theory, share the same importance as English. However, we know that in practice, that's not true. And a lot of, if it were up to me, all schools across Canada would be fully bilingual, half day French, half day English. Some kids probably wouldn't like to hear that right now, and they would say, "Oh no, not French." And I find that it's important for me to think why. Why is that? Take the time to ask yourselves, why do students or your children show little interest in French? Well, there are some reasons here, and I've typed them up. So it is difficult for them, and that is true. French is a difficult language. There are a lot of rules and a lot of exceptions. They do not see the relevance, and this is a very big one because it applies not only to students in French as a second language program, but also French immersion. So students who have learned French from a young age. They also do not always see the relevance of learning French, and they say, "Miss, what is the point? We live in Toronto." They don't use it outside of the school, and they don't have enough time. So most students who are in the FSL program get 30 to 60 minutes a day, sometimes only 4 times a week. So what is our answer? Well, the new Ontario curriculum, which I have right here, it's been revised, and it has been sent out to all of the schools across Ontario for implementation starting in September. And the new Ontario curriculum refers to or is based on the common frame of reference for European languages. And thank you very much. And the CEFR is a body that governs all second language learning across Europe. So as you know, or some of you are, from any country within the European Union, then you'll know that learning a second or third language is commonplace. Most people who come from these countries know 3 languages minimum. And I cannot stress this enough. There is no disadvantage to a child learning a second or a third language. So the new curriculum obviously has still some of the key components of the old curriculum, which is of course the skills. So students are still going to be graded based on knowledge of content, thinking, communication, and application. So basically, do they know, let's say, the knowledge of French? So do they know how to formulate a question? Are they able to express that? Are they able to show, and are they able to apply? So can they use the knowledge that we teach them and to create something? And of course, all strands, reading comprehension, writing, and oral communication, is also part of the new curriculum. Now, how is it different? Well, before, when we used to teach our students French, we would only teach, let's say, by units, and you would teach, let's say, adjectives. So, for example, we have a list here of adjectives, right? Je suis bavard, je suis timide, je suis gourmand, etc. Now, these adjectives, they learn it for a test, they take the test, and then they forget it. Well, that's the problem, right? Then they don't see the relevance. So we want authentic tasks. Students are to work on conversations, for example, introducing themselves, asking for directions, suggestions, things that you would use in real-life situations. What is the most probable situation your child will find themselves in? If you travel to a country, right, that speaks French, they might have to have a conversation. When they go into high school and they meet exchange students, they will have to have a conversation with them. So of course, these adjectives are important to know so that you can describe yourself and you can ask questions. The French curriculum will still focus on grammar and vocabulary, but it will be taught in a context. So if I'm asking a student to describe themselves and introduce themselves, what do they need to learn? Grammar, right? They need the grammar to be able to introduce. So colors. They need to be able to know the colors, the body, the parts of the body, and adjectives. Adjectives that describe your personality and that describe, your physical attributes. Students can no longer rely on memorization. Okay, they can't memorize. All right, le chien, the dog, la girafe, the giraffe, and they memorize it and then they forget it. We want them to continuously use this knowledge for later tasks. And the two biggest changes, I would say, is metacognition, thinking about how we learn. We want students to take initiative and to start thinking, how do I best learn? So up here, I've used an example that was actually in the new curriculum. And a lot of times, if I show my students, or I give my students a comic strip in French, and then I ask them, quelle stratégie as-tu utilisé? What strategies did you use? Did you read the sentence in full sentences? Did you use the pictures, a dictionary, the internet, or mots amis, which are words that are in French but they look like English? And of course, cultural awareness. Most people have this idea that French is only, part of France and Quebec, but that is not true. And there is a whole culture behind the French language. And we want to bring that out. We want to let our kids know that there is a culture and it's not just in two countries or two places. Now why? Why should you bring your children here to JEI for French? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, we are aware of the curriculum and we support it. And that's not always the case. And then who ends up suffering if there's no support? It's the students. They will, of course, need a better understanding of the language. So if you have a student that's been relying on memorization and that hasn't really cared about the French program, they're going to struggle later on because they're going to be asked to speak. And that's terrifying. Kids don't like that. We don't like that. When I was learning, my fourth language, I didn't like it, but I was put in front of a classroom and I had to figure out a way to communicate with somebody so that they could understand me, and that's real life. Students obviously can no longer rely on memorization, and they need to participate. And of course, as Martin has mentioned, it is a small setting here at JEI, and there is one-on-one private tutoring possible if that's what the child needs. Now, in conclusion, I would just like to reiterate the importance of French. So over 200 million people across 5 continents speak French. It is the 9th most sought-after language in the world, and it is a language that is growing a lot mainly because of the African continent. So it is becoming a language of business. It's always been a language of culture, and it will always be a language of discovery and communication. And it really is, I truly believe that it will open up the doors, for your children's success. So I would just like to thank you very much for listening to my rant and my love of French. And please feel free to go and get some refreshments and come right back as we'll have